You are sitting by a fire. The flames are low. The night is quiet, except for the wind moving through the grass somewhere beyond the tree line, and then you hear it. A low sound. Not a growl. Not exactly. Something in between. You don't run. You've learned not to run. For roughly 300,000 years, your ancestors shared this planet with wolves. And for most of that time, the relationship was simple. They competed with you for food. They stalked the same prey. They were dangerous. And yet, somewhere between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago, scientists still argue about exactly when something extraordinary happened. One of those wolves sat down next to a human fire and never left. That moment changed both species forever. But here's the part nobody talks about. You didn't tame the dog. The dog tamed itself. Most people imagine early domestication as something deliberate. A human finds a wolf pup, raises it, trains it, and over generations selects the friendliest offspring. Neat, logical, and almost certainly wrong. The reality, supported by decades of research, is far stranger and more interesting than that. In the 1950s, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitri Belyaev began one of the most important experiments in the history of biology. Working in Siberia, under the cover of a fur breeding program. Because Soviet authorities disapproved of genetics research at the time, Belyaev began selectively breeding silver foxes. His only criterion for selection was one trait: friendliness toward humans. Nothing else. He didn't select for intelligence, coat color, ear shape, or body size. Just friendliness. Within 10 generations, something astonishing happened. The foxes didn't just become calmer around humans. They started wagging their tails. Their ears began to flop. Their snouts shortened. Their coats developed spots. They started whimpering and seeking human attention like puppies. They were, by almost every behavioral and physical measure, becoming dogs. Belyaev's experiment revealed something profound. Selecting for a single behavioral trait, reduced fear of humans, produced an entire cascade of physical changes. Scientists now call this the domestication syndrome. And it suggests that the first wolves to approach your ancestors' camps didn't need to be captured or trained. They just needed to be slightly less afraid. Think about what your ancestors' camps actually looked like. Messy, loud, and most importantly, surrounded by food scraps, bones, offal, the remains of every hunt. For a wolf with slightly lower fear responses, what researchers call reduced flight distance, those camps were an easy meal. Every night, the bravest wolves ate. The timid ones stayed in the tree line. Over generations, the wolves that survived near human camps were the ones least afraid of humans. And those were exactly the ones your ancestors found least threatening. A kind of mutual tolerance emerged. Not friendship yet. Not partnership. Just two predators, each deciding the other wasn't worth the fight. Gregor Larson, a biologist at Oxford University who has spent years analysing ancient dog DNA, has shown that this process likely happened more than once, in more than one place. Dogs may have been domesticated separately in East Asia, in the Middle East, and possibly in Europe. The exact origin is still debated. But what all the evidence agrees on is that the process was slow, unplanned, and driven as much by the wolves' choices as by yours. At some point, though, something shifted. The relationship stopped being about scraps. Göbekli Tepe, a 12,000-year-old archaeological site in what is now Turkey, contains some of the oldest evidence of humans and dogs living in close proximity. By this point, dogs were already physically distinct from wolves. Their skulls were smaller. Their teeth were more crowded. Their brains, and this is striking, were actually smaller than wolf brains, a common trait in domesticated animals that no longer need to process the full complexity of wild survival. But here is what the bones at sites, like Bonn Oberkassel in Germany, tell us. Around 14 Susan years ago, a sick dog was buried alongside 2 humans. The dog had been severely ill for weeks before it died. Its bones show signs of canine distemper, a disease that would have been obvious and drawn out. Your ancestors nursed it. They kept it alive even when it was useless as a hunter, as a guard, as anything practical. They cared for it simply because it was theirs. That is not domestication. That is love. And it appeared in the archaeological record almost exactly when you'd expect. The moment dogs stopped being tolerated and started being irreplaceable. What made dogs so valuable? It wasn't obedience. It was senses. A dog's nose is somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 times more sensitive than yours. Its hearing picks up frequencies your ears can't reach. At night, when your ancestors were most vulnerable, when the big cats moved and the shadows shifted, a dog sleeping at the edge of camp was an alarm system no human could replicate. It barked before you could see anything. It tracked prey your nose would never find. It chased down wounded animals your legs couldn't follow. Anthropologist Pat Shipman has argued that the partnership between humans and dogs may have been one of the decisive advantages that allowed anatomically modern humans to outcompete Neanderthals. Neanderthals were stronger, had larger brains, and had survived in Europe for 200,000 years before modern humans arrived. But there is no strong evidence that Neanderthals had dogs. Your ancestors did. And within a few thousand years of that partnership forming, Neanderthals were gone. A wolf that chose to sit by a human fire may have helped determine which species survived. The relationship changed you too. Research by neuroscientist Miho Nagasaki at Azabu University in Japan has shown that when you look into a dog's eyes, both you and the dog experience a rise in oxytocin, the same hormone released during bonding between mothers and infants. Dogs are the only non-human animals known to trigger this response in humans through eye contact. They evolved to read your face, to respond to your emotional state, to seek your gaze in a way that even wolves raised by humans do not. They didn't just adapt to live near you. They'd adapted to understand you. So when you come home tonight and a dog meets you at the door, tail moving, eyes tracking your face, reading your mood before you've said a word, you are watching the result of somewhere between 15,000 and 40,000 years of coevolution. That animal is not a tamed wolf. It is something entirely new. A creature that shaped itself around human beings so completely that it can no longer be separated from us. You didn't domesticate the dog. You and the dog domesticated each other. And somewhere in the fossil record, a wolf that was slightly less afraid than the others sat down next to a fire that wasn't its own. And everything changed.